Welcome to Jikonimagic's Meza. Today we shall be making cassava in coconut cream. And before I go on, let me remind you that once you subscribe to my channel, please go ahead and ring the notification bell so that you can be notified immediately I post my recipes. Cassava is widely available in Kenya and the rest of Africa, but for those who don't know what it looks like, here it is. And so now let's go straight into preparing it. I start by peeling it, and it's very easy to peel, as you can see. Although there are many ways of peeling it, this is how I prefer to do mine. I also make sure that I clean up any residual peels that might be there. One thing that I always do is to remove the central fibrous bit that is very chewy and never softens regardless of how long you cook the cassava. The easiest way is to divide it into quarters and then removing it. After that, chop it up into bite-sized pieces. And then wash your cassava thoroughly before proceeding to the next step. I prefer to steam mine. You could also boil them, just as long as by the end of the day your cassava softens up. And as you can see, I already had just enough water to steam my cassavas for about 30 minutes because that's how long it normally takes mine to cook completely. And so here we are after the 30 minutes. The cassava pieces have really softened up and they are fork tender. Therefore, I covered them up to keep them warm as I worked on the sauce. I had already preheated 2 tablespoons of coconut oil in my sufuria, to which I added 1 large onion that I had sliced finely, and I also added a pinch of salt to it. Salt helps in drawing out moisture from the onions, hence enabling them cook faster. After about 4 minutes, I added a tablespoon of a mixture of ginger and garlic that were finely minced. Then cooked it for about a minute before adding half a green hoho, followed by 1 medium-sized tomato that was also diced into medium-sized cubes, 1 green chili that I had split lengthwise for flavor. You could always add more if you desire a spicier meal. I also added 1 tablespoon of dhania stalks or coriander that I had finely minced. After mixing everything together, I added a tablespoon of curry powder, 2 beef bouillons or beef cubes, and freshly cracked black pepper to taste. After this, I covered and left the mixture to simmer on low heat for about 3 minutes. And this is what everything looked like after the 3 minutes of simmering. The tomatoes had really softened and broken down. At this point, I added the steamed cassava to the sufuria and mixed it in with the contents that were in there. I also added salt to taste and just a little bit of water. Don't add too much at this point. You can always add it later if you so wish. I prefer to have very little water in my cassava. I also added a 1/4 cup of the white part of the spring onions and mixed it in. Then I covered the sufuria to allow the contents to come to a simmer. I hope you're noticing how the water is still on the minimal side. So once it had started simmering, I added half a cup of coconut cream and also rinsed the container with a bit of water to make sure that I got all the cream out. I also added 2 tablespoons of ukwaju or tamarind sauce and an optional teaspoon of Royco that I had dissolved in a 1/4 cup of water. You don't have to add Royco if you don't like it. I sometimes add it because of the flavor that it brings to my food. You can actually see that the liquid level is rising at this point after all the additions that I've made. At this point, I tasted for seasoning and balance of flavors, and I felt like I had put in a bit too much of the ukwaju sauce, so I added 1 tablespoon of honey. This is the importance of always tasting your food as you go so that you don't shock yourself at the end of it all. You'll be like, what was I doing? Am I the one who was cooking this? So make sure that you keep tasting your food. After everything had simmered for a few minutes, I added a handful of dania leaves and the green leafy part of the spring onions. And basically, my dish was done. I love it when the sauce is thick, so if you prefer it thinner, go ahead and add more coconut milk or water, whichever you prefer. So until next time, happy cooking, kwaheri ya konana until we meet you on Jikonimagic for more Kenyan dishes and also dishes from the rest of Africa. Goodbye.